Welcome back to the Vibrant Soulful Wellness Podcast. This is your podcast for ideas, practices, and strategies for living and working more vibrantly and soulfully. I'm your host, Annie Barrett, and I've spent the past 25 years guiding individuals, groups, and workplaces toward higher well being and greater fulfillment using the tools of coaching, lifestyle medicine, habit change science, mindfulness, Ayurveda, and yoga. And I'm glad you're here. This is going to be a fun podcast because in this podcast, I'm going back to the notes from a podcast that I recorded about 7 years ago on family meetings. And I called this podcast Adventures in Family Meetings. And so I'm going to call this Adventures in Family Meetings Take Two. So it's been 7 years. My kids were age 16 and 13. Now they are ages 23 and 21. So I've got two sons, River and Sage, and a husband, Steve. And we still do family meetings, maybe not with the same frequency that we did when they were teenagers or younger kids, but we still do family meetings. And Steve and I still do couples meetings. And so in this episode, I want to talk about how our family continues to evolve our connectivity with family meetings and how we've evolved our family meetings over time. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of how I got my family on board with family meetings and how this has worked out now, many years later. I think that this episode is for you if you are wanting to have greater connectivity with your family members. It could even be your housemates, your partner, to support all of you together. I think it's going to be a great opportunity to think about how you relate and work on both things that involve planning and your relationship with the people that you live with. So we'll talk about why you'd even want to do family meetings, couple meetings, household meetings, how doing this is going to improve your families or your connectivity with people around you, and also how to get the people that you live with on board with doing family meetings. I'll talk about different structures and agendas for having an effective meeting and how this supports your personal evolution and your family's evolution together. So, if you've been working with me before, you know that I am a health coach and I'm also a yoga teacher and workplace wellness. So I talk to a lot of people in different avenues about the way they relate to themselves and the people around them. And one of the things I have recognized over time in myself and in others is that people evolve faster when they're in a group than they're on their own. So, this idea that we're going to go it alone and work on something just all by ourselves without interacting with others, it just simply doesn't really work very well. We get people to evolve faster when they're working together when they're on their own. So it really means that being a part of a supportive community, whether this is your family group, your work group, your neighborhood, this is going to be one of the keys to your success in your own evolution, in your own knowing yourself more deeply and being more richly involved with life. So let's dive into this. I first heard about the idea of a family meeting a long time before I had kids. It was when I was working as an elementary school teacher. And in my classroom, I had learned about class meetings, a place where the students in the class, along with the teacher, could collectively discuss what was working well in the classroom and what was not working well, whether it was in the classroom or on the playground. And it was also an opportunity to offer appreciation and to problem solve. And at this time, I was teaching first graders, and I thought, why not? Let's give this a go. And so we started having weekly class meetings that were an opportunity to talk about stuff that was happening in the classroom and on the playground, to engage in some conflict resolution when it came up, and to also offer an opportunity for gratitude and appreciations. It turned out to be a really effective strategy for my first grade classroom. And then fast forward, eventually I had my own family, and obviously they were little for a while, but once they were old enough to start communicating, and once they were fighting with one another, and we were experiencing all the stresses that come with raising two wonderful, independently minded kids, as well as two wonderful but independently minded parents, I brought in the family meeting structure. In the beginning, it was really an opportunity for conflict resolution to help my kids work out the conflicts that they have with siblings and to teach them how to communicate. I remember back in those days, a lot of the meeting was spent talking about how they were going to share the Lego collection and how we were going to organize the Legos and how we were going to respect one another's Lego projects. And wow, there was a lot of time spent on that. Later over time, we started to talk about how we were going to plan for family events together. And we continued to talk about conflict resolution. But when we wanted to make it a regular feature of our family life, I realized I needed to get buy-in. When we decided to make family meetings more regular, I approached Steve and the kids about starting regular family meetings, doing on a weekly basis, maybe on a Sunday morning, and nobody was very enthusiastic about it. I remember my husband Steve was particularly not enthusiastic. The kids thought it sounded dumb. But I persisted, and eventually we came to recognize that it really was important. And again, like I said, now my kids are 21 and 23, and they see the value of this. And to make sure there was buy-in, there's a little acronym that I used with them. What's in it for me? WIIFM. What's in it for me? And without recognizing that there had to be buy-in, I knew that no one was going to do the family meeting. And so figuring out what the buy-in, when my kids were younger, the buy-in was waffles. I would make a big batch of waffles, and this would be a buy-in to get people to sit down. So we'd enjoy the breakfast, eat the waffles, and then eventually we would have the meeting. The buy-in was also what each individual needed to get out of the meeting. So when my kids were teenagers, what they needed to get out of the meeting was knowing that myself or my husband would take them to the places that they need to go, like over to a friend's house or over to something downtown. Later on, the buy-in was they wanted to use the family car, and we needed to coordinate schedules around that. The buy-in for my husband was getting people on board with projects that he needed help with in the garden or yard. It was also our own buy-in to one another to planning a date night, or either of us wanting to go out with friends. And so one of the buy-ins for everyone, we wanted support for the things that we wanted. And so this involved connectivity. And over time, we agreed to a set of family values and agreements to live by. Together, we created a set of agreements or guidelines. You could think of them as a value or a code. Creating this list gave us a sense of what our true north was as a family. What were the values that we held together? We had a bigger why for engaging in the family meeting. And when I look at this list now, this list still rings true. I'm looking at the list we created, I don't know, 7, 8 years ago, and it still is the same list. It is that we speak together with honesty and we speak together with kindness. Sometimes we just say this, we practice care and candor in the way we speak. Respecting one another in words and actions. So not just what comes out of your mouth, but also your body language and what you'll end up doing with that respect. We support one another in projects and learning. About a month or so ago, my 23-year-old did a music project in a studio and had about a bunch of out of town musicians. And I knew it was going to be a big deal for him. And so I supported him by making a lot of food and bringing the food up to the studio. It shows up in taking the time to help out with projects around the house, around the property, and in recognizing the things people are wanting to learn and take interest in what they're learning. Together, we all value a strong work ethic, and we take the time to contribute to the maintenance of the house and the property for those who are still living at home. And we have fun together. And so these elements of the family meeting, if you're starting a family meeting with your family, I recommend that you start with a list of agreements and that you brainstorm. So it's not top down. If you're the person who's setting up the meeting, don't you be the one that sets it up, but ask everyone what they think should be values, should be reasons for meeting, and values that you want to live by, and then hone them down and work them out. When you do meet, set a neutral meeting time. So now not everyone's around all the time, so it doesn't actually happen every week, but I would say it does happen a couple times a month. Usually it's when we're all together on a weekend day, and to plan to meet for only about 20 or 30 minutes because most people don't have bandwidth after that. You want to keep the meet the meeting efficient and upbeat. It's good to have an agenda and make sure people can contribute to the agenda ahead of time, or at least spend 5 minutes at the beginning, everyone jotting down what's important. Most of the agenda items are going to be the same from time to time. So when our kids were younger, we always read lists through the list of family agreements. Now we don't necessarily read through the list of them, but we know what they are. And we do still start with a positive focus. This is each person beginning with a statement about something that's going well. It could also be an appreciation or a gratitude, something they're excited about, something that's going great in their life. And it really does help. Even now, people say, like, can't we just rush through and start the next thing? But we all realize that when we say one thing that's going well, that it makes us feel more connected to one another, and it actually makes the whole meeting process more enjoyable. So if you are living with the people that you're meeting with on a regular basis, it's good to then turn to a week schedule where you run through the schedule to make sure everyone knows what's coming up. If there's drop-offs, appointments that are happening, pickups, meal planning, times people are around, times people are not around. Those are all the things that you need to know. And then if you or someone in the family has a particular project they're working on that in which they need help or support, that's the next thing, like a personal project update. And then we go on to household project updates, help needed, chores that are needed around the house, yard work that is needed, and identify what's needed and who's going to do what. If you're sharing meals together, then this is a good time for meal planning, for thinking about who is around for which meals, who can help out with which meals, who can take on shopping and prepping and being available for cooking and cleanup. Then after that would be maybe concerns, needs, and desires. So if there's something going on that isn't working, some kind of conflict resolution that needs to happen, some airing of a concern or a problem that needs dealing with, that's the time to talk about that. And this is where a parent or a kid or household members bring up something that's not going well. For example, hey, the mudroom continues to be a mess. There's been an ask for people to clean up and put away their things in the mudroom when they come in. Can people please all commit to doing this? Or, when my kids were younger, it would be coming back to reviewing agreements about screen time. And even all these years later, we are still discussing who's on first for garbage, who's doing the recycling. So that's interesting. Some of those things have been going on for a decade now, and they're still important. After that, it is great to talk about family outings and fun. If you have trips coming on, social gatherings, concerts, things in the community, these are a great time to talk about that and planning for fun. So that's the agenda. And of course, you can tweak it for your household or your family, but making sure that you end on time. No one wants to sit in the meeting forever. Starting and ending on time is important. And after the meeting, to make sure you're doing something fun, make sure you appreciate the people being there. So again, I'm just looking at this list of my family meeting notes from all these years ago, and it still rings true that family meetings or household meetings are for anyone who is on the path towards evolving their relationships, evolving who they are, and how they're interacting with the people around them. And it's really about connection and evolution. Whether you have a family, whether you have a household, whether you have a partner, I invite you to think about this family meeting, and maybe you even just do this with yourself, sitting down and taking time to have a meeting with yourself. And if you do this, let me know how it goes, whether your kids are young or whether your kids have left home. I think that this family meeting, household meeting structure can be used with anybody that you consider to be a core important person in your life, and can be a great way to foster connectivity and deepen your connection with them. So there you go, Adventures in Family Meeting, take 2. Many years later, I hope this was useful for you. And I thank you for listening to the Vibrant Soulful Wellness Podcast. If you liked this episode and you want to hear more episodes, please subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, or head over to my website, www.vibrantsoulful.com, where you can listen to other podcasts, get on my weekly newsletter, and enjoy lots of other wellness resources. Have a great day, and I hope to connect with you again soon.